Hello. Hello, 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 hello. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this event. Thank you for being here. Your presence is very important for us now that we are presenting the new book that was just released a few weeks ago, La Rayuela de Pablo. Let's start this event. We're going to talk about the democracy's frailty, what happens when the people get it wrong, the Venezuelan case study. And I want to start giving special thanks to the organization supporting us tonight. It's the Latino Outreach Committee of the Maricopa Democratic Party. Is anybody from the Latino Outreach here? You are here. Thank you. Freedom for Venezuela. We have Melissa here. Casa Venezuela, Arizona. We are from Casa Venezuela. I see some members over there as well. Thank you for coming. And also special thank yous to the Chicano Latino Faculty and Staff Administrator Association of ASU for sponsoring this event. And we have this occasion because of them, then give them a round of applause right now. My name is Jose Ferrero. I'm the Secretary General of Casa Venezuela, Arizona. I'm originally from Venezuela. I'm a father of 4 kids. Actually, my oldest daughter is also Venezuelan by birth, and she's an alumni of ASU in chemical engineering, then go Devils. And she will be graduating from her master's degree next month from Duke University, from Arizona to North Carolina. Beginning of year 2000, a software company from South Florida extended me a job offer to come to the US and start developing laboratory management and information systems. And after some family deliberations, we decided to take the risk and leave our homeland and move to the US. I'm gonna give a brief history that probably will be like a novel from science fiction, but reality. Once upon a time, there was a country full of natural resources, blessed with natural wonders and outstanding climate and location. The inhabitants were always cheerful and good people. After many years of stability and authoritarian governments, a group of leaders got together and formed an alliance, bringing a new way of government similar to other democracies in the planet. We called that time the Pacto de Punto Fijo. This democratic style was not perfect. In fact, quoting Churchill, and you will see that quote in the book, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. 2 main political parties were allowed to alternate in power for many periods to come. Many people were successful in business, education, science, etc. Progress and pursuit of happiness were at the reach of most of the population. It was an example for other countries in the region, and in many cases home of many immigrants from faraway lands, a land of opportunity, a pearl of the Caribbean. The oil bonanza brought significant resources, and the government gave opportunities to many people in the job market, like the Plan Empleo. Sending students abroad to the best schools worldwide. Programa de becas Gran Mariscal de Cucho. At the same time, people with access to government elites were taking advantage of the free flow of cash and limited auditing, and money was squandered, and corrupted mafias, including politicians, government officials, businesses, and their surrounding circles. There's a few cases like Sierra Nevada cases, Recari, Caso de los Jeeps, and etc., etc., etc. Okay. The governments, regardless of their ruling party, did not handle properly the wealth, and the country's economy was unhealthy. Changes were needed, and applying desperate measures were required to get out of the situation. People reacted against this economic plan, and during a national protest, many people were killed by the authorities. El fracaso. Years after, two failed coup d'etat were led by a military messianic figure, por ahora, promising a change, remember, cleaning the government and rule the country in a way to be more inclusive. A new socialism called Socialism of the 21st Century. A re-edition of one of the most successful ways of distribution of misery for all, and killer of progress and pursuit of happiness in any country. Actually, only 5 states still living the dream out of the 31 original communist states: China, Cuba, Laos, Vietnam, and North Korea. You can see those countries are flooded on a daily basis with tens of thousands of people trying to cross their borders, seeking for prosperity, quality of life, liberty, and justice. Democracy passed the test in the following years. The Attorney General requested a trial to the President on charges of corruption. The Congress removed this President from power, and the Supreme Court sentenced him following the rule of law, the juicio a capo. The balance of powers was applied and elections were held. Everything looked business as usual for the next democratic period of 5 years, until our military messianic figure, now free from jail after he and his circle was pardoned by the President, was actually leading the polls, taking advantage of fully tarnished political parties, and would actually become president of this beautiful country with cheerful and good people, who put all their hope in this populist promise of change, cleaning the house from corruption, bringing prosperity and union while implementing this so-called socialism of the 21st century. The democracy passed the test again, and this military messianic figure was elected, and using democratic ways, a brand new constitution was written, tailored to his wishes. He started governing at will, getting rid of the check and balances, and all branches of the government must be in line to his agenda. At that point, the democracy died after being tested for many years. A new democratic way to elect a dictator was risen in America. A new old way to do politics was implemented and exported to other countries, using the oil bonanza to purchasing allies worldwide, and arming an internal militia pro-government, and creating a so-called civic military union. Speaking more in depth of how brittle or fragile was this democracy and how to recover it is part of the book La Rayuela de Pablo. Rayuela is the game of hopscotch in English, and Pablo is referring to St. Paul, one of the apostles of Jesus Christ. The term hopscotch Rayuela was used before as a title of a book from an Argentinian writer, Julio Cortázar, and it's the history of Horacio and his failed attempts to find La Maga. The epistle of Paul to the Philippians, often referred simply as Philippians, is one of the 11th book of the New Testament. It's a series of books of that so-called science fiction book, the Bible. It's one of those books. Paul and Timothy first visited Philippi in Greece during Paul's second missionary journey, which occurred between 49 and 51 AD. Philippi was the location for the first Christian community established in Europe on his second missionary journey. While he was in Asia Minor, he has planned to travel to Bethany, but the Spirit of Jesus redirected him to Macedonia, a journey that was first recorded an introduction of the Christianity to Europe. Philippi was an important city in Macedonia. Actually, the name of the city is after Philip of Macedonia, father of Alexander the Great. Paul's letter to the Philippians is a dramatic and inspiring call for Christian unity. And in the beautiful hymn in chapter 2, verses 5 to 11, presents one of the most explicit and profound testimonies of the New Testament, of the divinity and humanity of Jesus Christ. Paul uses the word kenosis from the Greek verb keno, that Christ emptied himself, that he divested himself from his divine privileges, taking a form of a slave, humbling himself even to death on a cross to save humankind. The Greek word arete in Philippians is translated as virtue of moral excellence and refers to leading a virtuous life. And 4:13, chapter 4, verse 13 is a favorite quote, "I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Let us hear chapter 4, starting from verse 4 until 9. La Rayuela de Pablo is inspired on verse 8. Number 4 will be, "Rejoice in the Lord always." Again, I will say, rejoice. Number 5, "Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand." Number 6, "In nothing be anxious, but in everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, let us requests be made known to God." Number 7, "And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your thoughts in Christ Jesus." Number 8, "Finally, brothers, whatever things are true, whatever things are honorable, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there's any virtue, if there's any praise, think about these things." Number 9, "The things which you learn, receive, heard, and saw in me, do these things, and the God of peace will be with you." End of quote. La Rayuela de Pablo is a retrospective example of this country called Venezuela. As of now, time is in the essence. There are no doubts of the reality and complexity of the crisis generated by this system of government, many times deliberated on purpose. A recipe implemented by a mafia who took power in year 1999 under the guidance of Cuban leaders, and with no intention of conceding power to a new government. The extent of this crisis is now present across the globe, with many people fleeing the country looking for basic goods, medicine, a home, job, education, something we had before and gave out freely to citizens and immigrants as well. Thank you very much. We have now 4 speakers that will be talking to us a little bit of Venezuela and the book as well. Then let's start with Mr. Angelo Torrealba. Angelo Torrealba is a Venezuelan-born attorney. He is widely cited in political commentator and human rights advocate who has first-hand experience with Nicolas Maduro's government and its arcane policies in Venezuela. Mr. Torrealba is an active within Venezuela community in the United States and has represented their interests at the Organization of American States before Dr. Luis Almagro and the United Nations with the Secretary General's Envoy for Youth Affairs. Mr. Torrealba currently serves as an attorney representing Venezuelan students abroad and Venezuelan pensioners before the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights and served as an executive director for Pensionados and Jubilados Venezolanos del Mundo, Global Venezuelan Pensioners. Mr. Torrealba is also a member of the Phoenix-based law firm Apfel and Associates PC. Among his various academic achievements in Venezuela and Australia, Angelo has received 2 LLMs, most recently from Arizona State University, Sandra Day O'Connor School of Law. Let's welcome Angelo Torrealba.
Good afternoon, thank you very much. I'm so happy that I have this. It helps a lot. So Venezuela is a conundrum, quite difficult to understand, especially from the legal perspective. I'm an attorney, and by the way, go Devils, this is our house. And I should say that the first question I'm going to ask is, who is not Venezuelan here? Awesome. That is fantastic. So, and I believe that you already have any knowledge of what is happening in Venezuela right now, which is become like a very worldwide topic, and especially because of the violation of human rights that had happened over there in the recent years. So, the introduction has been incredible. Describe how we were so happy in the past, and now it's not that we are not happy. It's just that we have no rule of law. It's like we are right now in the United States, and we have access to medicine, we have access to food, we have access to everything that we want. Even if, I remember, if you want to buy a milk, you have the freedom to decide what sort of milk do you want. You want half milk, or you have entire milk, whatever you want. So I must tell that Venezuela is only 4 hours away from Miami. If you take a plane, you just go to Caracas, and in 4 hours you will be there. So we are not talking about Afghanistan, we are not talking about Syria, we are not talking about Iraq. We're talking like right here. And right here, there are no rule of law right now. Therefore, the system has been broken. For some, for others, it still remains, and it will depend on how you see it. However, the rule of law is only one. So, to understand what is rule of law, very simple and fast, I will say that we are all subordinated to law. Therefore, persons, institutions, and entities, public and private, including the state itself, and we are all accountable to the rule of law. And what is important, that is publicity promulgated, is equally enforced, is independently adjudicated, and which are consistent with the international human rights norms. So we are all under that spectrum. So we can live under control. Therefore, our powers works. So we have the Congress that works perfectly, regardless what people say. We still have democracy. We can go, we can vote here in the United States. And regardless the party that you vote for, or regardless the person that you support, you have elections, and you can change your president every 4 years. So, in Venezuela, we have several powers. We have the executive, the judicial, the legislative, the moral, and the electoral. But we have a society that has been divided. That was the beginning of everything. You divide the society, therefore all of them are against each other. Some believe, others don't believe. Some are being called Chavistas, others are being called opposition. But that's the trick. No one is called Venezuelan. Because at the end of the day, It doesn't matter who is in power. It matters who are the human resources that that country has. And the human resources are the Venezuelan. The human resources of United States are a multicultural population that coming from different countries, and they have their own ideas and they grow in these countries and produce. So imagine to divide them and to bring them that, oh, your neighbor is against you because he did not support the government. Oh, your neighbor doesn't deserve to eat because he doesn't support the government. So all that power is coming through the media that is already controlled by the government, which is not anymore a government, it's a regime. Anyway, I should have and say that maybe many people do not endorse what I say, and that's normal. That is amazing because democracy have the freedom that you can endorse, that you can believe, or you cannot support what others say. In Venezuela today, that is another conundrum. Like, if you support one, or you don't support the other, then the division exists. And therefore, you are classified. And when you start to be classified as a human being, you are not any longer a person that has freedom. Because you has been used by a system. And then you are a slave. Because they try to use your brain and to change the way of your thinking. Now, how is the current legal Venezuelan system? And that's another conundrum. Difficult to understand. But I will try to summarize super fast. So this is not going to be really difficult. So in Venezuela, there are today two Congress. And I'm going to call it Congress because that's the way that it's called in the United States. But over there is the National Constituent Assembly. So we have the real one, which is the one that belongs to the system that is go along with the original rule of law. And we have the second one that being created right now by Nicolás Maduro in order to implement his revolution. And I wouldn't call revolution if I want to go deep inside this, and some of the people say, Angelo, don't talk about that, but there is something called the Fatherland Plan, or El Plan de la Patria. And it's a plan that it has been implemented for so many years ago, and it's already, this is the second stage of the Plan de la Patria, the Fatherland. Anyway, don't go that further up. So, the National Constituent Assembly, which is the Congress, was created under the acceptable practice of the rule of law. But the one that created Maduro, it was more to obtain his power. So he created without any legitimacy and to control the country. Now when you have two Congress at this stage, who has the power? Maduro has the power because he's the one in office. And he controls all the powers that are managed by Venezuelans that has been already corrupted. And they want, most of them are corrupted, others are not, but you know, it's a supervised mode in which you have to survive. This has led to the fact that the original Congress, which is the legal one, it was the time to create or to appoint the new judges from the Supreme Court. And what happens? The legal one appointed them, they made the votes, and they decide who were going to be the new Supreme Court. And then the older Congress, the illegitimate one, keep the Supreme Court that is their allies. Therefore, we have now two Supreme Courts, two Congress, two Supreme Courts. But it goes beyond because the person in charge of the original one. Well, that's a. We also have to bring here something that is very characteristic of Venezuela. is a South American drama. So everything happens like a soap opera. So there is a lot of drama, there is a lot of everything. It's like a reality show. But sadly, that reality show affects a lot of people. So the general attorney that represents the government, decide that it's not going to support anymore the government. Therefore, she takes out the proof of overbridge, which is a company that has bribed a lot of organizations. When the judges for the Supreme Court, from the legal Supreme Court now appointed, wanted to proceed a trial, so the government started to persecute them. So they have no option to leave the country and create an exile Supreme Court of court. Therefore, we have the Supreme Court now located in the United States. And sometimes you have it in Miami. By the way, today they are in Florida having a meeting. Well, there is that duality. Who to believe to? Now we come to the international point of view. United States said, well, we do not support the Constitution, or the Congress, of Maduro. It's not created on the foundation of the rule of law. Therefore, we encourage all the countries to not follow what they said. But at the end of the day, the person who had the power is Nicolas Maduro and his regime. And they have divided Venezuela in a structure in which now we have Russians in charge of the petroleum, we have Chinese people in charge of the lands, and many other businesses, and we have a society that is fleeing out of Venezuela. I personally, in the firm, Adfel and Associates, in which we create, as an international law firm, we represent at least 25,000 students around the world. And I personally have read more than 60, 70 cases, the asylum, that we personally follow in the law firm. And I can tell you something. Every time that I read a testimony of a Venezuelan, I must to breathe deep and start again. Because it's not something that I don't take cases that are, well, we don't take cases that are made up. We take cases that we can confirm the sources, and most of them are real. And what is sad is to see how Venezuelans have been tortured. It's sad to see how Venezuela has been persecuted. It's sad to see how brilliant students, brilliant people are condemned to get out of the country and to not be again with the family, reunited with the family. Anyway, we need a place to dialogue about democracy. We need a place like the Organization of American States that had been very supportive with the Venezuelan community. We have the Inter-American Court of, the Criminal Court of Human Rights, where we also have the cases of the pensioners. The pensioners are Venezuelan, they are all Venezuelan, they used to leave. People from Europe, people from Latin America, people from all around the world moved to Venezuela when the Second World War, and then they create their own life, and they have families. But then suddenly, when they work, for instance, as a professor in a university, and then they are getting their salary, and then they pay in the pensions. When it's the time for them to receive the pension because they are being retired, but unfortunately, fortunately there were agreements with other governments where they can obtain the currency from the work if they decide to move to Spain, for instance. So unfortunately, that money is not any longer available for those people that has received pensions. And they are all around the world without any pension. They stole that money and they have no hopes. Today, where we stand beside that? Uh, uh, the International Criminal Court just finally opened a motion in order to study the case Venezuela. And probably after they consider, because Venezuela belonged or signed now the agreement with the Rome Agreement. Therefore, that allowed Venezuela to be able to be scrutinized in relation to violation of human rights. This is going to be a long process. They still are in the process of reading and understanding if there really was a violation of human rights during the time that the students, as you see in the photo, has been, and all of Venezuela has been persecuted and tortured and also killed. So, to close, because it's depressed, very depressed at this, all this scenario, I'm going to tell you something. I lost my hope because as a critical, being inside all this, you lost hopes in terms of do we have the real and a good human resources that will make Venezuela return what it was before. And then last month I was in Washington DC, and it was incredible. It was I was at the Organization of American States, and we were discussing with many Venezuelans, young Venezuelans that were there. I was quite impressed about how smart they are. I was quite impressed about how understandable of the situation they are and how competitive they are. But what more caught my attention is the capacity that they have to be humble and to have compassion toward others. And when you find a new generation that grows understanding that you can, it is not about you, it is not individual, it's a collective society, therefore you have to have compassion toward whoever is your neighbor, then you say, yes, we have hopes. I believe today that we have hopes, and this process will pass. Unfortunately, with all the past, or all the situation and all the story, and law will succeed. But it will, and I have faith in the new generation. I think that I haven't had the opportunity to read the book, and I'm so looking forward to read it. I heard and I read a little bit the comments about it, and I'm totally sure that this enforces what I'm saying about the hopes that we all have to have, but always to be alert, especially in the United States today, in which we have to participate and we need to be part of any movement to protect our rights.